today we will create this beautiful looking screen in Swift 5 and Xcode 13 using ScrollView programmatically. If you are a beginner or you've been using the storyboards earlier but now want to deep dive in code, this is a good tutorial for you, as you will get your hands dirty with the code. You will learn new things. So as you can see, we have an image view with label, two text fields, and a sign in button. Text field, once you click on it, keyboard pops up. You can type anything. Once clicked on next, you will be taken to the password field, and once the password is entered, done button pressed, the keyboard dismisses itself. You can also dismiss the keyboard by clicking anywhere in the view. So without further ado, let's get started. Create a new Xcode project, click on iOS and app. The name we will choose ScrollView. Make sure the language is Swift and storyboard is selected. Even though we are not utilizing the storyboards, we will still keep it that way. And the application, we are saving it on the desktop. You can save it wherever you want. Right now I'm waiting for the project to be built. Okay, so now we have the Xcode opened. There is a main.storyboard file. This is where we will be creating the views if we weren't using the programmatically approach. View controller file is associated with the main.storyboard. For now, I'm just going to create a view background to see everything is hooked up, and in the meantime our simulator will boot up. So here I'm gonna use system cyan color, and I'm gonna choose iPhone 13 Pro for my simulator. You can use whatever you like. Once again, let's wait for the product to build up and simulator will be launched. We will see the system cyan color as a background. That means our view is connected to our controller, which is view controller file. And here we go. One thing I would like to see is we have here the black icons for battery and the timing. That's something we can change programmatically as well. So I'm just going to create a mark and call it vars preferred status bar style variable, and we're going to return light content. If we rebuild our storyboard, you will see the icons have been changed to white icon. So now get rid of this view.background color, and we'll start talking about the scroll view. So for the scroll view, as you know, what we need is basically a scroll view, which will be the view going up and down in the view controller. And all scroll view has content view, or also called container view. So container view is basically which holds the UI subviews, for example your label, text fields, and buttons. Let's start creating a scroll view. So we're going to create a lazy bar closure, lazy bar and scroll view, which is type UIScrollView, and this will be a closure, so we need parentheses at the end. We're gonna say let scroll view is equal to UIScrollView and return this scroll view. So scroll view dot background, we can choose the system sign again, because this is what we used earlier and that was shown in the end product. And scroll view dot frame, this is the size of the scroll view. We want view dot bounce. And one more thing we need is, if you want to make sure the scroll view bounces when it's scrolled, it looks nice, just for that purpose we will say yes, it's true. And scroll views auto resizing mask to flexible bit. So auto resizing mask is something which adapts the layout if the main layout changes. For example, if the device is changed from portrait to landscape mode, we want the scroll view to adapt that layout as well. One more thing we need is something called scroll views content size. So content size is a CG size if you bring your cursor on it, and okay, so there is no help in here, but content size is a CG size which is expected to say how wide or tall the scroll view will be. So in this purpose, what we will do is we will create a variable so we can reuse it for future use as well, called the content view size, and this will be a CG size with the width and height. So the width of the content view size is the device's width. So we will do self.view.frame.width, and height will be similar to the view's height. So self.frame.height. I'm gonna add a constant for +2, and this will be used later on when we try to enable the scroll, when we will add some UI elements into the content view size. So here, and coming back, scroll view to content size, we want to make it to content view size. All right, so we have the scroll view right now, which is fine. We need to create a content view as well, so let's do that first. Lazy var I'm gonna call it container view, and again this will be a UI view, same closure. We're gonna create let container view is equal to UI view container view dot frame container view dot frame dot size. We need to tell its size, so we wanna make it same size as our content view size declared in here. And finally we're gonna return the container view. All right, so one thing we need to remember is when we are doing anything programmatically, we need to add these views into the main view as a sub view. So basically, if we rerun our project, you will not see anything because we have not added these scroll view or any other sub views in the view yet. You see all a white screen, and the reason you didn't see the system on color is because we get rid of that line, but we used that color for our scroll views. In here, all you have to do is self.view.add subview, and we will add the scroll view. One thing to remember is also the content view or the container view is a part of scroll view, not the main view. So we need to add that as well. So self.scroll view, make sure you type the scroll view dot add subview, and we're gonna add the container view. If you rerun the project, you will see a cyan color, which means basically our scroll view and container view have been added into the main view. So now we can start getting the other components in line. I'm just gonna quickly create a mark here for the view lifecycle, so it will be easy to see where we are if we have to scroll down in this mini map in here. Next thing we're gonna create is the image view, the one we saw. So it's, again, we're gonna lazily create it. So lazy var image view, and then its type of UI image view. Again, it will be a closure, so we need a parentheses at the end. So I'm gonna say let image view is equal to UI image view, and we're gonna return this image view. Okay, so the image view, the image we are using is called login logo. I will share the link in the description so you can use it. We will say the image view dot image is equal to UI image named login logo. Make sure you spell it correct, otherwise it will not pop up. And then we want image view clips to bonds is to true, Additionally, we need the image views aspect scale ratio, so it will be scale to aspect fit. So we call it content mode dot aspect scale to aspect fit. All right, so we have the image view. Now the next component we need is the email text field, or actually the label in our final product. So we're going to create the label first. So lazy bar label of type UI label, same way. What I'm gonna do is I will fast forward the video so you can actually skip seeing me typing every single line over and over, and this will save your time. So I will see you in a minute. That is, we created a lazy bar label again with the text, which is, it is pretty simple to see. As you can see, we have a text which says sign in and have fun, and then the font name, what we want to use, and the size. Text color, we want to keep it to white. Number of lines is 0, so if in case we need a bigger label, we want it to expand it to the next line, and the labels alignment for the text should be left. And finally here we are just returning the label. Another component we need is the email text field. So again, I will just do the fast forward. Email text field, pretty simple kind of UI text field, and then the placeholder with the dark gray text color. Clear button always. What it does is, if you start if you see in the final product, when we start typing, when we form, you see this gray clear button. So if someone presses it, they will see their text erased. They don't have to manually delete everything. Round rect is the type of the view we want to see. So as you can see, these corners, and also the corner radius, mask to bound to true, and then this text field dot set left padding points to 20 is a function we will create later on. This is to see to put a gap for the text field. For example, you see when we make a corner radius for the text field, this space, the very first letter E, will show up in here otherwise. So we will just to make it look nice, we're gonna put a padding of 20 points from this point to here, so it will look nice on the both ends, even with the at the right hand side. So if you type everything, this will never cross the gray mark, because there's always a 20 points difference from here to this point. Next step, we have to add the password text field. I'm gonna quickly go in here and then add that in here as well. This password text field will be similar to the email text field, only exception is just with the placeholder. All right, so we have added the sign in button, our password text field, email text field, and we have our UI label as well. So let's see what we have the problem in here. Okay, so I forget to add the parentheses at the end. All right, so we are good to go for now. One thing again, just a reminder that all these UI elements you have added in code, they will not be shown in the subviews yet, because we have not added them in the UI view at all. So here what we need to do is we will add all these text views and all these other elements in a container view, because remember, container view is the one which holds the contents for the scroll view. So here we can create a mark call it adding subviews to the container view. All right, so once we have everything in here in the container view, the views are there. But if you run the project and now you still don't see it, the reason why, because when we create the views programmatically, all you have to do is you need to set the constraints. Views added to the container view, but we still don't see them. The reason, as I said, we need to add some constraints. But before we add some constraints, we need to disable the auto resizing mask for every component you want to show on the main view. That's what we are going to do. I'm gonna put a mark in here called disable auto resizing mask. This should be set to false if you want to use your constraints programmatically. Otherwise, if any property is set to true, the view will not adhere any constraints at all. So first thing, we will start from image view. So we will say translate auto resizing mask constraints to false. I'm just gonna be a little lazy in here and copy paste all this except the first view. So we will have the next one called a label, and again to the auto resizing mask should be to false. The next one is email text field dot auto resizing mask should be false, and the password text field same, and additionally for the sign in button as well to false. We're gonna set up constraints. In order to set up constraints, we're gonna create a function, but let's set that up under view.layout subview. So this is the view life cycle when we want to lay out the subviews according to our choice. So we need to call view.layout subview and super on it, view.layout subviews. Alright, so this is where we will set up our constraints. So I'm gonna create a function called setup constraints. This function doesn't exist yet, so I'm gonna say mark setup function, or we can create a private function in here, private function setup constraints. To set up the layout constraint, you use NSLayoutConstraint, and that's what we're going to use. Dot activate is the feature. So by using activate, you can define an array of the constraints, so you don't have to define constraints for individual views. You can see the activate this accepts the array of constraints in here. What I'm going to do is make some space in here, and we will start with the image view. I will put a mark so we will know what we are doing. So image view. When it comes to setting up the constraints, you have to have 4 constraints, one at top, bottom, each side, left and right. And also you can set up even the width of the view as well. But remember, you have to have 4 constraints minimum in order for a view to set up properly. The top constraint is called top anchor. We're going to type image view.topanchor.constraint. So in here you have a couple of options. We need to choose the one with equal to and constant. So equal to is, it should be equal to where you want to place, for example equal to some parent view, and the constant will be the number, how many points you want it to set from that parent view. So in here we will use top anchor.constraint equal to the very first element is the image view, which will be equal to the container view's top anchor, and we want it to display 20 points. So we will say container view dot top anchor dot actually top anchor, and then constant we want it 15 points. Similarly, make sure you put a comma in here. The next one is the left, right, and height. So we will do a left anchor, and again it's constraint equal to the left anchor. We want the container views left anchor. So how far away from the left views of the container this image view is, that's what we're gonna define in here. We don't want we can leave this because we want it to show the 0 points away from the left hand side. The next one is right anchor. So the right anchor is basically from the right hand side, and right hand side we want because this image will be 0 points left, 0 point from the right, so basically end to the bounds, we will say just the container view dot right anchor. All right, the last thing is also we need to Okay, so we have an error in here. Let's see what we got. Content view dot left anchor. I made a mistake in here, and this one should be image view dot right anchor dot constraint. I think I misspelled in here, and we need equal to right anchor. Right. If we build our project, you may or may not see the image view yet, but let's see what we have. So the build is successful. You see all our views are in here, and our scroll view works as well. Image view is properly aligned. What you see, two things we need to fix are: one, here you see the scrolling indicator, we don't want to show that to the users. And also all views, they have been placed in the container view, but their layout is messed up because we still need to set up all the layout constraints for them. So let's fix the scroll view indicator. All we need to do is that we have a property called scroll view dot show horizontal scroll view to false. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's horizontal, and otherwise it will be, no, actually it is vertical. So show vertical indicator to false. All right, so we don't see that gray particular bar in here. All right, one thing we want to do is our image view in here is actually way bigger than what we wanted to have. So the easy way to fix it is add a height constraint in this image view. So image view dot height constraint, height anchor. We want dot its constraint to be equal to, let's say, 300. So this should bring our image view to 300 points. And if we build and rerun our project, okay, so we have an issue in here. Image view dot height anchor dot constraint equal to constant. We are missing in here constant 300. Okay, so if we rebuild now, you will see our image is much smaller than it was before. We still have a lot more to cover. So next thing, that next element we want to add is the label. Alrighty. Okay, so the label stop anchor in here is equal to the image views bottom anchor. This is one thing we need to note down, because image view is taking up until this in here, this area. So we want the label below here, so that the label's top will be image's bottom anchor. So we want this label to be constant at 10 points away from the, or below the image view. That's why we have a bottom anchor in here. The left anchor is, again, we want the image views. We can use the image views left anchor because image views left anchor was placed at 0 points, so therefore 0 points plus 20 points from there, so it will be shown in here somewhere. Again, the right anchor, again we were using it, how many points you want to see. If it's a full screen label, we will use a constant to 0. Let's rerun our project and see what we see in here. Here you go. So we have the label and we have the image view. Next one is, again, for the email text field. I will quickly add the email text field and our password text fields. They are pretty much similar. I will explain how things work for them as well. So I'm gonna put a mark in here for email text field, and here mark for password text field constraints. Okay, so email text field here, again we need the 4 constraints: top, bottom, height, left and right. What we need to do is for the top, it will be similar. So now the email text field is uh, 25 points below the label below the sign up label. So that's why we are using sign up labels bottom anchor, and then we're gonna put the 20 points in there. For the email text field height anchor, we need to use the constraint for 50. So the height of the email text field will be 50 points. Left anchor and the right anchor are same. Container view, we want the 25 points on each side. The one thing to notice is on the right hand side we want a negative value, because if you put 25 in there, it will go 25 plus beyond the container views bounds. So basically this will be 20 points away from the right hand side of the screen. Similarly for the password is below the text field, therefore the top anchor password will be below 15 points of our bottom anchor of the email text field. So if we rebuild our project, rerun it, you will see we have successfully email and password text fields. So remember at the beginning I was telling you guys about this function called set left padding points. The reason why I was saying, you see when the corner radius is applied and you see this does not look good, there is very less space on the left hand side, and if you keep typing you see the text, it's almost close to the gray area. That's something we will fix later in the series. And now here we want to add finally a mark for the sign in button. Sign in button, we need again the top anchors constraint. Top anchors constraint, we want this view 60 points, or actually 25 points below the password text field. So I will say password text field dot bottom anchor, and we want a constant of 25 points. So next one again will be the left anchor constant, and left anchor we want the container views left anchor, and the constant we wanted 40 points from left and right. So I'm going to copy this for the right anchor, and then we will place this view 40 points on each side. So make sure we change the container views and the sign in button is the right anchor, and for the value here on the right hand side we need it -40. Also we need to add the height of the view, and it should be constraint equal to, we will keep it 60 points height wise, and that's all. So let's see if we build. It says okay, we have an error, I forget to add equal to constant. There is a typo. Okay, so here you go. So we have this beautiful looking sign in screen. The keyboard pops up as you can see, but nothing happens if you click on next, because that is we have to still implement the text field delegates. You can see we have completed almost 80% of our application, and only thing remaining is few enhancements with the keyboard pop-up, keyboard handling. So we want to disable or dismiss the keyboard when user taps at the background view and when the done button is pressed, like that. So what we're gonna do is, in order to hide the keyboard using these text fields and the return key in here, we will use something called text field delegates. I'm gonna put a mark in here saying text field delegates. Here we will assign this delegate to our email text field and password text field. So self.email text field dot delegate is equal to self, and self.password text field dot delegate is equal to self as well. So once we assign this delegate as a self, which means basically we are telling the view controller will be the delegate holder for these two text fields. So view controller is missing required delegate functions provided by the UI text field delegate. And instead of clicking on this button, we will define our delegates at the bottom. We will create an extension at the end of the view controller which will subclass the UI text field delegates, and only delegate method we are interested in is the text field should return, which returns either true or false. There are a couple ways you can use this function to get the desired output. As you can see, this function takes the text field input. We can either switch on the text field, we can use if statement. So what we will use is the if statement. We will say if the text field is equal to email text field, then we want the password text field to become first responder. So becoming a first responder just triggers the keyword. Result is any text field which is the first responder becomes editable, and at the end we need to return true or false. So if we rerun our product, if I click on email address and click on next, the password text field becomes the first responder. The cursor jumps to the password text field, and then we can add anything. We still have not implemented the done functionality yet. What we can do in here is we can tell the view controller saying if the password text field is the first responder, now we just want to resign the first responder. So resign first responder. Actually, this will be a text field dot resign first responder. Let's rerun the product. So right now we will click on email text field. We'll type any address in here and click on next, and the password becomes the next responder. When we click on the done button, the password text field dismisses the editing and dismisses the keyboard as well. And that's pretty much it for the hiding the keyboard using the text field delegates. One thing I mentioned is we want to hide the keyboard when user taps at the background view. Um, we need to use tap gestures. Here we can create a mark called hide keyboard when view is tapped. So in order to create the tap gesture, we will define a constant called let tap gesture of called type UI tap gesture recognizer. So this recognizer, we need a method to use target and action. So target is where we will be targeting this function at, and action will be an objective C action. In order to get rid of the error, so let's put another comment in here called dismiss the keyboard, and I'm gonna define that function here. Make sure you define the object C function, because the selector functions are always object C type function. So object C function, we're gonna rename it to the dismiss keyboard. Again, this function has a parameter called recognizer, which is UI tap gesture recognizer. Error goes away. Next feature we need to tell this tap gesture to how many taps the user should have before it triggers the designator selector method. So number of taps required, we will put it to 1. In order to make sure the view interaction is enabled, we will type view dot is user interaction enabled to true, and finally we will add this tap gesture to the view. So self.view.add gesture recognizer is tap gesture. In order to check the functionality, I'll just print something in here called background view is tapped, and let's see if we have this working. I'm going to rebuild the app. As you can see, if I click on anywhere in the view, you see our console in here is printing background view is tapped. That means we can utilize this function. Even our text fields are behaving the way we want them to behave, we still got a problem when using this approach on smaller devices. So let me pull up another simulator for iPhone 8. As you can see in here, the functionality is the same as the iPhone 13 Pro. We can type anything in the email text field. When we click on the next button, the cursor jumps to the password text field. However, because the height of the iPhone 8 device is less compared to iPhone 13, the keyboard hides the password field. As you can see, the cursor is blinking at the back. However, whatever you type, user will not be able to see at the back end only until you press done button. This is not a showstopper, but it is not a good practice from the user's point of view, because user needs to see every time what they are typing. So that is something we will fix in here. In order to fix this layout issue, what we can do is we can utilize a UI responders event called keyboard well show notification. So what it does is it updates the view anytime user opens up a keyboard in the device. And similarly, we will use another responder called keyboard did hide notification. Already placed a mark called handle keyboard notifications. We will use notification center dot default dot add observer for add observer, and the value we are interested is in a selector with the name and the object. So basically, observer will observe the events when the keyboard will hide or when it will show. The observer will be self, because this is the view where we will be observing the events, and the selector we will define later. The name is called UI responder dot keyboard will show notification, and object we can place a nil value in here. So for the selector, I will just create an objective C function, and we will name it keyboard did show. This will not accept any parameters. To get rid of the error, we need to create this object C function at the bottom. So I will name it the same, keyboard did show. This will take a notification of type NS notification. Similarly, we need another observer to tell the view that keyboard has hidden because the user has finished typing in it. So we will use another responder called keyboard did hide notification. And for the method, we will use similar function, but we will name it to the keyboard did hide instead of did show. I'm gonna fix that in here. As you can see, this function takes a notification parameter, so we can see the size of the keyboard from this notification directory. So if you just want to see what is happening in the notification, it is actually an NS notification dictionary. We will run the application and observe the value. What do we get? You can see in here we have a dictionary with bunch of key values, and the only value we are interested in here is called the user info dictionary. It shows you the frame size of the keyboard based on the device we will be using. For example, if it's iPhone 8 or iPhone 13 or whatever version you are using. So what we can do is, here we will go back to our code and then get the size of the keyboard. So I will say if let the keyboard size is equal to the notification dot user info. So this is the dictionary we want, and we are looking for the key called UI responder dot keyboard frame begin user info key, and we need its the value as NS value. So the CZ value, CZ rect value dot size, and see print keyboard size is, and then the size of the keyboard. As soon as we click on the text field, we now can see the keyboard size is 375 points, and this is the width. This is actually so if I rerun the application, you will see we have the keyboard size. What we can do is we can use this size for the scroll view content inset. The scroll view has a property called content inset, and if you click on the content inset, it is a UI edge inset. That's something we are looking for. We will create that edge insets, and we don't have this variable yet, so I will just create in here. So let edge inset is equal to UI edge insets, and this have top, left, bottom, and right parameters. So the top, we don't care about the top. Left will be 0. The bottom is something we are looking for. So the inset we want is we want to add the keyboard size height into it. So basically, whatever the keyboard size's height is, the scroll view will add that value into its bottom value, and right we will do 0 0.0. So if if we rerun our application, and then we will see the scroll view should scroll up with the height of the keyboard. So let's see what happens if we click on the next button. And as you can see, the password field becomes visible because the scroll view adds up the inset amount similar to the height of the keyboard. And if user clicks on done, nothing happens. The scroll view stays at the same point. That's where we will utilize the keyboard did hide function. That is all from me for this video, and I hope you learned a lot. I know we have typed hundreds of lines of code compared to the storyboards where you could just simply drag and drop the UI fields or the views the way you wanted, align them and constraint them. But when it comes to create the more complex UIs, you will need to utilize the core functionality of the UI kit by code instead of the storyboard.